This podcast is part of the Zeo to Hero Podcast Network.
AvenuePodcast.net.
Hello, all my beautiful people. It's time for another fun episode of If You Give a Dad a Podcast. So I have a really cool guest with me. As you know, most of my guests I say that about, but that's because I go out and I find the very best to have on this show. And I'm very excited to have on this week's guest, and that is Tony Snow. He is a manager in MPX and also WFC. He does all kinds of other stuff, and we're going to kind of get into all of that today. He actually does a out-of-character interview with me in this episode, and that's something that he doesn't normally do. And I'm very excited that he chose my show to give this in-depth interview to kind of see behind the curtain of the man behind the enterprise. And when I say enterprise, I'm talking about the Snowman Enterprises. So, for those of you who are here just to hear the Tony Snow episode, welcome. I hope that you enjoy what you hear, and I hope that you stick around and listen to some of the other great episodes I have here as well. So, if you guys are as excited as I am, then let's get this show on the road.
If You Give a Dad a Podcast. Hey, Dad.
So where did you actually train at?
I made a really good career out of being able to bump, sell, and I had a punch me face.
I wasn't about to call you dad, so.
Seriously?
I felt like it was in an anime or something.
People get really mad at those videos for some reason. Like it triggers certain people. Yeah.
Bloop. Wow.
I was actually lost as an infant, and I was taken in by a traveling group of independent wrestlers.
I love it. I'm excited for this stuff.
Bro.
Get punched in the face on the daily. Do you always do these interviews with your shirt off?
What?
Man, this guy won't shut up.
All right, everybody. So today I have a man with me that I'm very excited to be talking to. He is a former music producer for Ring of Honor. He is the owner and CEO of Snowman Enterprises. He is a DJ. He's an Oklahoma-based wrestling manager, and he is a master on the mic. And I am talking about Tony Snow. Man, how are you doing today?
Man, I am great, Jared. Thank you for having me. I've been listening to this to the show for a minute, and been a fan of it for a while. So I'm honored to be on. So thank you very, very much, sir.
Yeah, I am very excited to talk with you tonight. It's something that we set up a few months ago and everything, and definitely been looking forward to it.
Right after I heard the Dexter Hardaway episode, I reached out to you because he's like my big brother in the wrestling business, one of many mentors I claim in the wrestling business. So once I heard his stuff, and I'd listened to the Tommy Dean episode, and then the Kurt Gannon episode, just a bunch of people that I like as wrestlers and human beings, and enjoyed what I heard. So I wanted to jump on the opportunity to get on here myself, and here we are.
Right on, man. Yeah, all the names that you mentioned there, those are great episodes. I enjoyed talking to all those people. There's so many of them, you know. I try to get on people, you know, but you run out of time, and so yeah, there's people like when you reached out to me. I think I think it might have been like 2 or 3 months ago. Whenever we
3 months ago, yeah, it was right when the Dexter episode dropped.
Yeah, so I mean, I wish I had more time in a month so I could get more people on this show. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy doing this, and I think we're gonna have a lot of fun talking tonight.
Oh, definitely, let's go. I'm down for anything, and like I said, leading up to this, you know, I'm all about kayfabe, and I've got some old school trainers and everything, but I'm also all about kind of letting people behind and get to know me too. I know it's 2023, and I realize that, you know, technology and the internet have changed a lot of things. So I did one out of character interview, and so this is the last one. I'm going to do this as me, and we can talk about my story and some of my accomplishments and stuff. But you know, you're just going to be talking to the person. I'm not going to be sitting here calling you a sweat hog and telling you your breath smells like douche water and everything, you know.
I actually did want to ask you about that. How did you come up with the sweat hog thing?
Well, I'm a lot older than I look. I'm 42 in January.
Oh, okay.
I'm a 42-year-old rookie. I'm like Dennis Quaid, but not as cool. If you remember that movie, The Rookie. But anyway,
Yeah.
so when I was a kid, I was born in 82, and I spent my young years with my grandparents, and they used to watch a lot of old TV shows. They'd always have the TV on because you didn't have the internet back then.
Mm-hmm.
So, you'd have the TV set going all the time. No matter what you were doing, something was playing on the TV in the background. And Welcome Back Cotter came on one day. And the guys in the back of the class, Vinny Barbarino and his buddies that would act up all the time, he called them sweat hogs. And I remember hearing it as a kid all the way back then and being like, man, that's such a cool word, sweat hogs. I love it. And so, like, I was a kid drawing pictures of pigs with like sweat dripping off of them and everything, and talked about like there's a board game Warcraft came out with called Blood Bowl, and I called my team the Sweat Hogs, and then later on, I'm watching WCW because I was a WCW kid.
Mm-hmm.
And when Rick Rude would do his shtick, he'd take his robe off and say, what I'd like to have right now is for all of you Rhode Island sweat hogs. I heard him say it one time. And I was like, man, that's so cool. So it kind of just has always been in the back of my head. And then when I debuted in Wagoner, it was crazy because I've been training with Teddy Long since 2020. But Wagoner, Oklahoma with WFC last January was my first time in ring as a manager doing anything. Okay. And the whole show, all I did was come in and cut a promo, started out nice, and then flipped on the fans. And by the end of it, I'm calling them insults. And I was like, man, I can't believe after all these years of paying dues behind the scenes, I finally get on screen and, in this ring in front of people, and it's in Wagoner, Oklahoma, surrounded by rednecks and hillbillies and sweat hogs. And Dan the Beast Severn was in the back corner at his meet and greet table, and I heard him pop like a zit on a 14-year-old girl's forehead, like he lost his when I said sweat hogs. And so I'm like, hey, maybe I've got something here. And then a couple days later, after I cut a promo, and said good evening, sweat hogs, and then Tim Rockwell went to Tennessee, and he cut a promo. He's a heel there. Shout out to Tim Rockwell. I always give him credit because he's the first person to put me on screen as a manager. Robert Langdon's the first one to put me on as commentary, but Tim Rockwell's the first one to put me on as a manager. And he used my phrase. He was like, hillbillies, rednecks, and sweat hogs. And so when Tim's using my stuff, that's, a huge compliment for me. And so I've made shirts, with sweat hogs on it, like a baseball team logo and a little piggy's head instead of a number. And they buy them and wear them to shows. They've had me sign them. And let me just say, one of the companies I worked for, MPX, a couple months ago or last month, we did a show with Nyla Rose was there, The Purge.
Okay.
So AEW Star is at a show that I'm on. And I cut a promo as my El Jefe character down there. And I say the word sweat hogs at least 3 times.
Yeah.
And then the very next week, Bernard Funk hits me up and is like, yo, Christian Cage is stealing your steez, bro. And I watch AEW. He sends me a clip. And here's Christian Cage on the mic leading Luchasaurus down the ramp with the TNT title on his shoulder. And he's like, that he said, they call you Dirty Jersey for a reason, sweat hogs. Now let me do my job. And I'm like, goodness. Come on, man. Like, if this was a coincidence and he was paying homage to Rick Rude, that's cool.
Yeah.
But, like, if this got to him because of me, come on, bro. Like, I should get an email with an offer to come talk to somebody there if I'm creative enough to where my stuff is used on television. I'm not saying sign me, Tony Khan. I'm saying get me in a room with you. If Christian's going to buy my stuff. That's all I'm saying, bro. Make that happen, TK. I know you listen to this podcast. I know you and Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman and all these guys listen to this podcast. And I never have asked a favor of any of you gentlemen yet. And all I'm asking, TK, just get me in the room if he's biting my style, bro.
Man, if they are listening, then I'm going to pop. Yeah. So,
they are because I'm on. What are you talking about?
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
I'm a draw, baby. I got championships everywhere. Let's go.
So the very first time I heard that, when you did the Sweat Hogs thing, I was like, man, that is so unique, and it's great because you don't hear stuff like that, and it felt like a throwback to me, And like you were saying a minute ago, you were trained by a older generation when it comes to wrestling and stuff, and so hearing that, it very much took me back to the old WCW days.
That's what I grew up on and watched. And my mentor and trainer is Teddy Long, and he was a WCW manager trained by Eddie Gilbert and Kevin Sullivan. So there's more old school for you.
Oh, yeah.
And then my in-ring trainer that, taught me how to take bumps and all, Joe from Oklahoma, he's old school.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, man, I get a lot of comparisons to Gary Hart from how I dress to how I act and how I work. And I take that as a compliment every time I hear it because I've studied Gary Hart a ton. He's one of my favorites. But yeah, dude, it's fun, man. And it's fun too seeing how it's kind of evolved from Sweat Hog. I still use Sweat Hogs all the time, but at MPX, as I'm El Jefe, this, Mexican American drug lord. I have dual citizenship, of course. And so I started calling them piggies and stuff, and what's up, piggies? Did you miss me? And so piggies is getting over almost as much as Sweat Hogs is.
You're gonna have a shirt with that next.
I know, right? I've got 9 Inch Nails put out a song called Piggy that I love that came out years ago, and one of these days, one of these wrestling companies I work for is gonna let me use it as an entrance. One of these days, man.
So how did you actually get into wrestling?
Well, I started out. I came in the back door.
Okay.
I had a 20-year career as a hip hop DJ.
Oh.
I worked with every rapper in Texas, if you can think of them.
Really?
From Paul Wall was the first Texas rapper to pay me to DJ for him.
That's
Actually,
cool.
one of my little bros is his touring DJ right now. I lived with Lil Flip for 2 years. I worked with the Screwed Up Click. I worked with UGK. It's where the whole Tony Snow thing came from. Pimp C was like my OG. This past October, I brought Slim Thug up to my venue in Oklahoma for a Halloween party.
Mm-hmm.
In 10 days from now, I got Afro Man coming up. Like, I DJ'd for years, and it was crazy, man. It's just like a crazy set of circumstances. Everything happens for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I was living with Little Flip, and he had a few of us living with him as assistants and A&Rs and DJs and all that. And some of us would stay at home on the road, usually just one of us, and chill and watch the place because he's a millionaire rapper. He's got a nice house.
Right.
He's got cameras, but he wants somebody there in case something happens.
Yeah.
And so I got to the point that the older I got, I started volunteering to stay home because he would leave money for pizza, and he had a PS3, and he had this studio at home that I had free access to. And I'm like, yeah, you guys can go, be awake for 24 hours straight on the road. I'll stay at home with TV and pizza. I'm good,
Right.
I'm fine being a fat kid. But I was up in the studio one day working on a mixtape, and I got to a breaking point, took a little break to get my head right. And I was watching turned over to YouTube to just watch some indie wrestling. This is like 2015, I guess, 2014, 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw a clip from NEW, Northeast Wrestling, out of like Massachusetts, I think. And there was a wrestler named Flip Gordon. And he came out to a song by Lil Flip, the guy I was living with and working for and DJing for and producing for, called Game Over. Because it goes flip, 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 flip. Like the whole hook is now who they want, flip, flip, flip. And it's got like a video game beat behind it. It goes hard as that, I'm watching my language because it's If You Give a Dad a Podcast show. It goes hard. Anyway, and so I was like, yo, this is cool. This guy's using Flip's music. And so through the power of X, which is what they now call what used to be called Twitter.
Right.
I reached out to Flip Gordon on Twitter, and I was like, yo, dude, I see you're using Flip's music. I'm his DJ. One of them, I live with the dude. I showed him your stuff. He thinks you're dope as hell. Like next time you're in Texas, we need to link up. And he goes, well, I just so happen to be working with Ring of Honor now too, and we're about to do a Texas loop. So on the Dallas date, you guys show up and you can be my guests. And so that date came around and I showed up and Flip met me there and he introduced me to a guy named Gary Jester, who was like pretty much the head of the company. And for people who don't know, like he's been an executive in every big wrestling company ever. He worked in WCW for Eric Bischoff directly. He worked in WWE for Vince back when it was WWF. Wow. He was one of the main people behind All In. He was one of the main guys at Ring of Honor. His name's Gary Juster. Really nice older man. Never think that he's a wrestling executive. He looks like he should run a bait shop in an old country town. Like he should be wearing overalls, like he wears a dad hat. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's like you never imagined Rick Rubin was a genius producer if you didn't know looking at him. The guy walks around barefoot and looks like he's homeless. It was kind of like the same vibe. But I noticed that he had an Autism Speaks watch on, and I have autism. I was nonverbal until I was 6. Like I was told, you'll never speak, you'll never live on your own, you'll never live independently, you'll never hold down a job. Like wow. I have the mental developmental age of a 16-year-old. It's crazy. And so like I started talking to him and he's like, how'd you learn to talk? And I was like, well, wrestling and music is all that ever made sense. And so watching Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross, they taught me how to speak, really, like straight up.
Yeah.
Like I'm 6 years old and saying slobber knocker before I'm saying door. It's just because it made sense, because it came through a medium that interested me, that made sense.
Right.
People with autism, there's no two of us that are the same. There's more knowledge about it nowadays, thank goodness. Like back when I was diagnosed with it in the 80s, it was 1 in every 600 children were diagnosed with autism. And now it's like 1 in every 60. Yep. Which some people might be like, oh, that's horrible, the numbers are going up. Well, no, it's actually a good thing, because it's always been around, just more people know about it. Right. Just like police violence and overreach has always been around, just now we have camera phones and people are capturing it. Like this stuff isn't new, people. Like it's always been there. Like I have COPD. It's not anything new. My grandma died of COPD. They just called it lung disease back then. Right. Like, it's everything's always been around. And so he was really impressed with me and then I told him I DJ'd for 20 some years, and I was like, man, how cool would it be if you guys let me come out and just me and a turntable in the ring and DJ and get the crowd hyped up before a show? And he's like, well, I can't do that. Like, but what I can do is get you in working production for a loop or two if you want to try, and see if you like this life. And I was like, dude, I'm down. And he's like, well, it doesn't pay much. I was like, dude, did I ask about money? I don't care. I'm down. Like, if you would have said, come put the ring together, I would have done it. Like, you know what I mean? Which I've done plenty of ring setups. Yep. Working in the indies, but I was spoiled. So the first independent wrestling company I ever worked for was Ring of Honor. Wow. And it was in the peak of the Bullet Club days when they're selling out 3,000, 4,000 seat arenas. Yeah. So I'm doing like Dallas and San Antonio and Oklahoma City. And then I'm doing, I had a passport, man, which helped out a lot. Pro wrestlers, indie wrestlers, if you're listening, get a passport. You never know when you might need it, and they're good for 10 years. And so because of that passport, I got to go up and work Toronto and some Canada dates and stuff. We did Detroit, Toronto, and Buffalo in one loop. And so then when I was on these Ring of Honor loops, before every live show, what do? You have dark matches. Right. And those dark matches are usually lower card guys from the main show against local enhancement talent. So during the Texas legs, I met a lot of local Texas wrestlers while I was working production for Ring of Honor. And I'm making entrance themes and playing entrance music as they hit the stage. And I'm just happy. I'm like, man, if this is the farthest I ever get, man, I'm happy. Let's go. I'm working, getting paid to do something with wrestling. Yeah. And so I got to know Ian Riccaboni really well, and Colt Cabana, and a bunch of those guys. I got to know the Young Bucks as they were at their peak. I got to know Cody. I've given Cody hats and shirts that he's worn on Being the Elite, you know, before he signed with WWE again.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
I got to know all those guys right when they were at their indie peak. It was the coolest time to be around them.
Yeah.
And then the tour loops ended, and everybody said goodbye for the season because, you know, they had the Christmas season off really every year.
Right.
And I got hit up by one of those independent Texas wrestlers that I met at Ring of Honor.
Mm-hmm.
I introduced him to Little Flip. You know, he was a fan. You know, when we did the Dallas show, Little Flip showed up. Him and Flip Gordon had a little thing after their match, you know, and we introduced him to all the guys in the back. And one of those wrestlers that I introduced Little Flip to, he got me booked, or he invited me to a wrestling show. I went to a wrestling show with him that he was on, had a great time. Then he got me booked on a wrestling show to DJ. And it was crazy going from one of the top wrestling independents to a local wrestling independent. This was Dallas Championship Wrestling.
Okay.
You know, and I'm expecting to get the same treatment I got at Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
And I walk up and I pull up to the address and it's the Elks Lodge in Dallas, Texas. And I'm like, okay, there's 12 people here. This will be fun. I hope I get paid at least. And the promoter, the guy running the show who ended up booking me, got so drunk at the after party he didn't pay me. He had to be like, dude, I'll hit you up later.
Oh, no.
And then it kept spiraling over, and then finally he got caught up with me.
Mm-hmm.
But working there got my face out, and I got, you know, next thing you know, I'm working for another company. Then next thing you know, I'm working for 5 or 6 different companies as DJ and music producer, making entrance themes. And then COVID hits and like the world shuts down.
Right.
But one of the companies that I worked for, they decided they were still going to do shows, but they were going to do it in a small studio with a contained audience. Masks had to be worn, all that stuff, right? This was in June of 2020.
Gotcha.
And so we did this show. It was it was like one of the old NWA studio shows, bro. There was like 20 people there. It was one row of chairs around a ring and blue curtains.
Wow.
And who's on the show? Road Warrior Animal and Teddy Long. And so I get to meet Road Warrior Animal because they need me to make entrance music for him that sounds like the Road Warrior theme, but it's not exactly like it.
Right.
And so he recorded his voice some, and I made his theme for him, and he loved it. And I'm so blessed that I got to play it a few times and send him to the ring to it a few times and got a picture with him before he passed away. And I'm still good friends with his widow, Kim Laurinaitis. She's the sweetest lady in the world. But that day I met Teddy Long over our shared love of greenery, if you will. I don't know how far you go on this podcast.
I get you. I know what you mean.
He was like, and he's told the story before, like, you can always spot a fellow partaker when you see one.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed to find a guy, and I looked and I'm like, there's my guy. Like, those are Teddy's exact words, you know?
Holla, holla.
I was, yeah, right. He's the biggest partaker I've ever met, bro.
Really?
And Randy Orton was his partner all through WWE. That was his buddy. That before every show, him and Randy got together in Randy's trailer. I got so many stories I can tell you, but I know your show's PG.
Yeah.
But so at the time when Teddy met me, I was living with some other pro wrestlers, but I was on a bunch of meds for my autism.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't gotten safe access to other medical means yet,
Right.
because I hadn't lived here long enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was way overweight because I was on 5 really strong mental meds and high doses of each one. Like, I was 260 pounds, dude. Like, I would get out of bed to shower and go work these wrestling production bookings, and that's it. Otherwise, I was in bed. I just had no motivation. Like, the drugs I was on are killers of motivation, dude. I understand they're tranquilizers made to help slow my mind down, but they had me on way too many. And these are all medicines that the state put me on. This
Right.
was state healthcare.
Yeah. So
Um,
is it to help with like anxiety or to help?
I have seizures and other things
Okay.
that go along with it. It's anxiety, seizures, OCD, all sorts of stuff.
Right.
That it's like a package deal, man.
I got you.
And
Yeah.
you never know what you're gonna get. At least I can talk, and
Right.
I'm mostly highly functional.
Mm-hmm.
But the guys that I lived with, they were all pro wrestlers, and I asked them all to train me. I was like, I know I'm too old to wrestle, but I could manage. Train me to manage, and they never took me seriously. They would laugh at me, and I'm sitting there with them while they're watching TV, and I'm just talking, and they're like, "Man, that's a great idea." And the next thing you know, they're using one of my ideas in a match, but not crediting me for it, and
Oh.
refusing to train me to manage. So it's
Yeah.
like, dude, come on, what the heck, bro?
Yep.
So I moved out on my own, and I told Teddy, like, yeah, these guys are just hating on me. I just want them to train me. And he's like, well, listen, playa, you're too old to wrestle. I'll just be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're way too fat to manage. So he's like, and he showed me a picture of when he managed ice training. He was 250 pounds, and I was 260 at the time.
Yeah.
And so Teddy put me on a workout plan. He put me on 2 different supplements that are all natural, sea moss and L-carnitine.
Uh-huh.
And he told me to stop drinking sugar. And just from those little things, I went from 260 to 185 right now.
Oh, wow.
And the whole time I'm losing weight, I'm training with Joe, learning to take bumps.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having 3 sessions a week with Teddy that are an hour long, where he's going over psychology and teaching me things that Dusty Rhodes taught him, and teaching me things that Eddie Gilbert taught him, and teaching me how, to use psychology in a match, and how you don't have to throw in a million high risk spots to tell a good story.
Right.
And if you watch this year's version of Extravaganza from WFC live on IWTV, you'll see me and Teddy go face to face,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll see some matches Teddy's involved in, and you'll see everything I'm talking about, because Teddy helped with all those matches that I was involved in. Teddy helped put together. He's my trainer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was so much fun. And so we're doing stuff with Dusty Rhodes finishes, bro. That's great. I did 2 straight up Dusty finishes on IWTV on Extravaganza 2. Like, you got to check it out. It was so good. The main event against Mr. Anderson was awesome. So, Teddy's just training me, and then I get a phone call one day from Tim Rockwell. He's like, "Hey, man, I've been thinking of bringing you into WFC." And I'm like, "Well, what capacity?" Because at this point, I'd learned how to and done everything I could. I've been on commentary now at Texoma.
Yep.
I've ring announced at Legacy Pro. I've worked production. So I was like, "You need me on commentary, you need me ring announcing, you need me doing sound." He's like, "No, man, I'm thinking a manager." And I said, "Well, it's funny you say that, because the last 3 years I've been training to manage."
Oh, cool.
And he's like, "Are you serious? Who's
That's
your
cool.
manager?" And or who's your trainer? And I was like, "Teddy Long." And he's like, "Hold on a minute, playa." Like, Tim said the phrase, like,
yeah.
"Hey, Teddy Long?" And I'm like, "Yeah, bro." And so he's like, "Dude, let's talk." And so we got it all worked out. I committed to be there, at least all this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I made my debut in January, and I started out just managing Dutch Hagen, the Luxembourg Beast, and then I added The Shining, which is Duke Swellington and Handsome Jack Davenport, after the Johnnies told me no, which ended up being one of the worst mistakes they ever made. And then I added Dashing Dustin Tibbs, and I've got a couple other guys that I got my eyes on right now. And we currently have 4 out of the 5 titles in WFC. We have the Heavyweight Championship, the Tag Team Championships, and the Prime Championship. And as a manager, I did my job in helping secure all those titles, and I'm going to continue to do my job in helping to defend those titles.
Yeah. So the only one that you guys don't have is the Hometown Heroes champion, right?
Yeah, and I've had a few different talks with Mr. Royal. I've offered him to take him out to sushi for my treat. So
yeah,
hopefully something will happen soon, because I've always been a big fan of Alex Royal. So I knew as long as Justin Lee had the Hometown Heroes title, I'd never work with him because there's no way an ego like mine would mesh with an ego like his. It's impossible. Which I made a post the other day saying ego kills talent. I should have said too much ego kills talent, because to be in wrestling, you got to have somewhat of an ego. You got to
Definitely.
believe in yourself to get
Right.
over.
Yeah.
If
you don't, then who
but
will?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So now I've got WFC. I have 4 of the 5 titles. MPX, we're about to come back. We just finished up a big few month-long storyline down there and sold out every show I was on. And then I'm taking a few weeks off because it's a heck of a drive.
Yeah.
And then we're supposed to be in a tag team program, which I'm excited about. And then Texoma, which is where I started out as commentating. I'm working there now too, and I have someone I manage. And this past week, I tried to recruit a tag team, and apparently, when they made D'Lo Brown the commissioner of Texoma, he put out a memo that if you touch a referee, then you get suspended for 30 days. I didn't get that memo.
Yeah.
I live in Oklahoma, D'Lo. Like, my internet's not that great. Okay. If you were said it in the ring, I might have been out back with my client. Like, I didn't hear you. And so this past Friday, I pulled the referee out of the ring as he was counting, and D'Lo suspended me for a month. So it was nice because he came in the ring and he told me I was one hell of a manager, and then he suspended me for a month. So it's like he's gonna butter me up and compliment me and then tell me I can't come back and get paid for a month. Thanks a lot, D'Lo.
Well, and D'Lo, that's somebody. Is he just doing a part-time gig there, or is he working with Texoma on
He's working with Texoma now. He's the commissioner. He's coming in almost every month, man.
Wow.
He's also working with their academy. If you're in Ardmore, Oklahoma, you can go get trained by my trainer, Joe, Tigo Sika, and Fuego del Sol from AEW. And when D'Lo is in town, he helps out there too. He does a lot of help on psychology and promo work. But yeah, so D'Lo, it's pretty surreal, man. I told him the other night, back during the pandemic, I had a D'Lo Brown action figure that had the IC title, and I actually had the old WWF ring replica, TV replica IC title that was WWF without the scratch WWF, like the old one.
Yeah.
That he had, that Figures Inc. made, that was real leather on the back.
Right.
And during the pandemic, I was like, man, I'm never going to meet D'Lo Brown. And I sold both of them on Macari. And now I see the guy every month. I could have had both of them signed. Like, I see the guy every month, bro. He's one of my mentors now. And I told him last night, and he was like, bro, don't kill me.
Hindsight's 2020, isn't it?
Now, don't be surprised if D'Lo doesn't show up in WFC soon, because they already brought Teddy Long in, one of my mentors, trying to stop me, and that didn't work.
Yeah.
So, they keep bringing in all these people. Tim keeps flying in all these stars that have had influence on my life to try to stop me. If he can get Road Warrior Animal there, I'll be impressed. Rest in peace.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been loving everything that I've been seeing with you when it comes to WFC. I've kind of kept up with everything that you've done, because I think that right before you came in, there was an announcement that you were going to be coming. So I was kind of watching, as you were going to come in, because I know that there was a former manager for Dutch Hagen and stuff that left. I believe it was at the end of last year, and then you came in. So it was nice to see you come in and see that fresh face and see what you had to offer to this group. And it's been great, everything that I've seen.
Man, I appreciate that. Yeah, when I was brought in, WFC over the past 10 years, they've had 2 very legendary managers that I'm going to give their flowers to, and that's Richard Pierce and Big Stevie Cavallero.
Yep.
And both of them decided that it was that time in their life that they were going to step away from being on-screen talent. And so both of them stepped away. Stevie was still very involved with the shows and production. Richard still comes by all the time and hangs out in the locker room.
Yeah.
But I knew I had some very big shoes to fill. And the cool thing is, both of them have been very, very gracious the whole time. And anytime I've had questions for either of them, or anytime that there's been something in one of my matches that's been kind of wonky that I haven't noticed, they've been quick to come over and point it out, but in a in a delicate way that's not gonna, come across as judgmental. Like they're both awesome, man. So I knew I had big shoes to fill, but they're doing their very best in helping me fill them. And now Stevie is back as an authority figure,
Yes.
and he's the king of the sweat hogs because he appointed the crowd as the board of directors and championship committee, and he's the president of it. So if you're the president of the championship committee, Stevie, and the crowd is the championship committee, the crowd's the board of directors, and you're the president, that makes you the official king of the sweat hogs, little Stevie. Can I call you little Stevie? Little Stevie Caballero. That makes you the king of the sweat hogs, buddy. I'm sorry. So that makes you public enemy number one. Just don't mess with me and stay out of my way, and we'll be just fine, little Stevie. I promise you.
So I know he got that because of a match that happened in WFC where Rockwell actually lost that title. Now you were involved in that happening, weren't you?
No, I wasn't involved in any of that. I haven't been involved in any of these things since January. Big
Okay.
Stevie and Richard were already gone when I came back when I was there.
Right. No, I'm talking about how Tim had lost the presidency, and then Stephen Caballero took over that.
No, I was not involved in that. It was weird. It's been kind of a revolving door. We had Mike Andrews was the president of wrestling operations. I think you're talking about last year when were fighting for the presidency overall.
That's right. Yes.
Tim,
Yeah. I do remember that
that was
now.
before my time. Tim Rockwell is still the president of the company, but Mike Andrews was the director of wrestling operations and
Yes.
president of the wrestling committee. And then he was fired and brought back as a manager. And then Tommy Brownell / Tommy, what was his stage name? Tommy Lancer was the president of the championship committee, and then some things got in the way for him.
Mm-hmm.
And so now Big Stevie is out of retirement, and I couldn't be more happier. Can't you hear it in my voice?
So I can hear it so much. Yeah, the excitement is just dripping off of your voice.
You should see the messages he emails me. I swear to God, I read them in a Yiddish accent because of the way he types. Like Utes is not a word, not Utes.
Utes.
Like Utes guys. No, you guys. Come on, Steve, you work with me.
I've heard yuns and I've heard y'all, but I don't think I've heard Utes. God. So
yeah. So I felt like I needed a translator for the last message you sent me. Anyway.
So going back to something you were talking about a minute ago, how did you come up with the El Jefe character that you use and that's an MPX, correct?
Yeah, it's a Metroplex Wrestling, which is owned by Matthew Palmer and Athena and Ernie Pruitt. And it's fun because it's kind of like it's the last place people hit on the way up to AEW and the first place they hit on the way down. Like gotcha. Right when their contracts expire, they're on a show there, and right before they're about to sign, they're on a show there. I saw it with Swerve Strickland, with Leva Bates, with so many people, and it's awesome because getting to learn from them is really cool. But I didn't come up with a character; the character was come up with for me, and it was weird because I am an MPX mark. I've been watching the product for 5 years.
Yeah.
They were the first Texas Indie I went to as a fan just to watch, where I wasn't there to like network or anything. And I've been watching for 5 years straight. I've been subscribing to their network.
Oh wow!
And so I kept seeing all this talk. Aaron Stevens said his faction was coming, and then Muerte joined them, and then they're like El Jefe's coming, and Aaron Stevens and Muerte, when they started out as a crew, their first manager was Nastico. And so me and I think about 90 million other people thought Nastico was going to be El Jefe. And then Ernie Pruitt came to a Texoma show and saw me work. And then the next day, I'm messaging with him on Facebook out of nowhere. And he tells me to hit Palmer up. And so I hit Matthew Palmer up, and he asked me to cut a promo, which I did. And I actually cut the promo on him because I'd known him for a while. And again, I've been an MPX fan for 5 years. I went to a lot of their shows. I had a podcast of my own. I interviewed a lot of their talent for. So I cut the promo on Palmer, and then I didn't hear back from like forever. So I just thought, okay, I guess they're just not going to use me. And then like literally their shows are on Saturdays. I get hit up on a Thursday afternoon by their booker
Hmm.
asking me if I wanted to be El Jefe. And I was like, yeah, dude, I can totally do that. Like, my girl's Mexican. Her parents don't even speak any English. I'm around all the Spanish culture. He's like, I know, that's why I came up with it as the character for you. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, you were this famous DJ. You sold the rights to your music. You moved down to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, which is where all these rich Americans retire to because there's no property tax. And you set up a quote unquote empire down there and married this Mexican woman because I am in real life with a Mexican lady. And you know, now you're investing in Lucha Libre. So I originally was only supposed to be there for 4 shows. I was El Jefe, the boss, like the financial backer behind the faction. And then my first show I was there, I could tell something was off with Aaron because he seemed kind of snippy and didn't seem like himself. And I'd known the guy for years,
Hmm.
and he had some sort of cardiac thing happen in the ring, something with his heart, and he hasn't been able to wrestle since.
Hmm.
Um, and so right away after that happened, the focus of the feud shifted from Aaron against this guy with his faction behind him and me financing it all to me against this guy and me against all the fan favorites, and almost like WFC where it was like me against Johnny Lightning and my wrestlers were just, you know, tools to win these titles.
Right.
Like that's how the core of the Tony Snow character wants all these titles but knows he can't win them himself, so he uses wrestlers to win these titles for him.
I like
And
that.
so it was perfect for WFC and it's perfect for MPX now because now it's like I'm feuding with all these baby faces. I'm cutting all the promos because my wrestlers don't speak because most of them are Hispanic. One of them has a mask and doesn't speak at all.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like it's me against these guys, and my wrestlers just happen to be my chess pieces in the battle, you know,
Right.
and so it's fun because I get, you know, being a heel manager is hard because you have to put over your guy, you have to put over your opponent. Because if you don't put over your opponent, then you just beat a nobody. And what was the point? And then you
Right.
got to get your own heat, and you got to get heat for your opponent or heat for your client. Well, it's a whole new dynamic with me now because it's almost like the matches, the good guys against me, and the bad guys are just in there filling in the spots while I'm having all the moments with the good guys. And that's fine with me. You know, I'm having the time of my life.
Yeah.
It's a whole new dynamic. It's more Bobby Heenan managing than Harley Race managing, if you know what I mean.
Yep. I do. So there was something that you told me about whenever we were started talking on Facebook and everything, and you were talking about the amount of heat that you got from something that you did with Dexter Hardaway when it came to MPX.
Oh yeah, it was crazy heat, man. Like he you know, the guy it was right after we went to the whole thing at WFC. They inducted him into the Hall of Fame, and he screwed me over out of the match that
Hmm.
I had later on. You can watch it on OIW. So he and I were already on bad terms. You know, they say you don't fight harder with anyone than you do with your family, right?
Right.
And even though right now I hate the man's guts, he's still my brother and I love him. But he started talking all this mad smack on the MPX Addicts page, and I told him that he needed to stay away, or there would be consequences. Like you need Saturday night, you don't need to be at MPX Arena. You need to
Hmm.
be chasing balls at the Rangers Stadium like you've been doing, and let daddy handle business, you
Yeah.
know. And he showed up, and not only did he show up, he came to the very front of the center barricade and was talking all sorts of smack. So I literally said, if you watch my stuff too, 99.9% of my stuff is reactive.
Yeah.
Like people start stuff with me, and I don't just let it fly. I send it right back to them. You
Right.
know, like I'll hurt their feelings, dude. Like this one guy kept calling me a cheater, and I was like, "You want to talk about cheating? Look in your wife's phone, check her text messages." And
Oh.
she's like, she goes, "But that's not my son, or that's not my husband, that's my son." And I said, you could have fooled me. He looks like he's 75. Meth is a hell of a drug. Like I literally I did stand-up comedy before I did this stuff. While I was DJing, I worked with Shaq's Comedy All-Stars, so I've got a quick wit. Like, you're not gonna win a face-off battle with me. You're just not, you know. There's a guy, I'm really proud. There's a guy at Texoma, a fan that's been coming around for years and been screaming a lot of homophobic stuff at some of the gay wrestlers we had, some of the LGBTQ community, and some of them don't wrestle anymore because of it. And I exposed the guy on live broadcast 2 months ago, and now him and his family don't come anymore, you know. And so and it was all because I was wearing my purple suit, and he was calling me a homophobic slur. And so I pulled one of the cameramen over, and this was on the live feed. I said, "Hey, America, you want to see what a homophobe looks like? Here's one right here." And he called me that slur right on the feed right there.
Oh, wow.
And so they were basically told they weren't really welcome back. And then they were like, well, we're not going to come back anyway, blah, 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 you know. So, yeah, dude, it's been fun, man. I'm a heat magnet. He said all that stuff. So I literally threw my entire bottle of water in Dexter's face. And it got him and it got everyone behind him, because I didn't just throw it. Like, I squeezed it as I threw it towards him. And so it was like a water bomb, you know, and it hit him and all the women behind him. And so, yeah, it was something else, man. You should go check out the MPX Network. It's on Twitter now, or Twitch now.
Okay.
Twitch.tv/Metroplex Wrestling. One thing that the piggies that really love is when I bring tortillas for them, because I'm the benevolent El Jefe and I feed the people. So I toss tortillas out into the crowd. And, you know, on special occasions, sometimes they don't deserve them if they've been bad piggies. And this past week, I had a pack of like 50 corn tortillas fresh from my abuelita's kitchen. And one of the Babyface's fans wearing Aaron Evil's shirt in the third row, as soon as she saw me during my entrance, she jumped up and gave me the double middle finger and was all F you snow, just cursing at me so hard. And so out of those 50 corn tortillas, she took about 40 of them to the face. I started throwing them at her like Frisbees. And then the next thing you know, it was like the Ninja Turtles pizza machine. Like, I was literally standing up on the apron, pelting her with corn tortillas as she's flipping me off. And then by the end of it, I'm balling them up like baseballs and just hitting her with them. Because I'm like, oh, okay, it's F me. Okay, here, have a tortilla. Open your mouth. I'm sure you're used to it. Oh, my bad. Sorry. If you have to edit that, you can. But anyway, like, it's all response. You know, everything I do is all responding. And some of it, like, one dude hates my guts because, you know, at Texoma, I was their play-by-play guy for 4 years. I was a baby face. I was their straight play-by-play guy. I was an Ian Riccaboni student of commentary. You know, I know him personally. Him and Colt are like my GOAT commentary team. And I know a lot of those regular fans that would come because they added me on Facebook. I didn't add them. You know why? Because I don't give a about them. Oh, sorry. You can get sense of that out. I don't give a bleep about them. I don't give a F about them because they're wrestling fans. All they did was pay money to see me. So a lot of people pay money to see me. What makes you special? Like, and they added me on Facebook. And so I know stuff about their personal life. And when they get cute with me as I'm walking to the ring, I use that against them.
Right.
Like, I'm making my entrance to the ring and this guy starts cursing at me and telling me he's going to shove my cane somewhere. And I stop and I tell him very calmly, because I know he's a 62-year-old pizza delivery man for Pizza Hut. I stop and I very calmly tell him that the only time he needs to be addressing me is if he's handing me a large pepperoni pizza. And he jumped up all mad and was yelling at me. And I said, you know what? Just for that, I want stuffed crust and I'm not tipping anything. And extra anchovies. Like, give me all that. Like, I'm not gonna let up, and I always keep my word, dude. Like, it's almost like an obsession with me. My fans, people either love me, hate me, or love to hate me.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I sell a ton of 8x10s at shows because a lot of people love a good bad guy. And
Right.
even though I don't believe I'm a bad guy, that's what I've been labeled as. You know why I've been labeled as a bad guy? Because I take shortcuts. Well, you know what? Sure, Snowman Enterprises takes shortcuts, but what company in the world that is successful doesn't take shortcuts? Look at this company we're using right now for this meeting, Zoom. They probably take a shortcut. They probably haven't. They probably cheated on their taxes once or twice, or broke some country's laws or something just to get a break on their fees or something. Like whatever company you work for is probably taking shortcuts. This microphone I'm talking into, Blue Microphones, their company probably took shortcuts at some point. The only difference is I have the testicular fortitude to take shortcuts in front of all these stupid sweat hogs. Like I do my cheating in public. And if the referee doesn't see it, it doesn't count as cheating. So we won that prime title. And I don't care how you think we won it. We won it. You know, we won those tag titles. Did we jump Johnny Lightning in the parking lot? You damn straight we jumped Johnny Lightning in the parking lot because I told him if I saw him in that building again, I was going to end his career. And I might not have ended his career, but I did everything in my power to, man. Let me say, I got to respect Johnny Lightning because that boy can take a beating.
Yeah.
He's right up there with my plumbing. My plumbing can take a punch. Like, he can take a beating, man. Like, I'm telling you, dude, he can take a beating.
So there was something you brought up a minute ago, and I didn't know this actually. You had your own podcast.
Yeah, back in the day called Rap and Wrestling. And then it was actually a radio show that was broadcast on Bounce 104 out of Denver. And so I would record it as a live podcast, and then I would send them the recording, and they would play the recording on their FM station.
Oh, that's cool.
So it was called Rap and Wrestling, and I interviewed rappers and wrestlers. And so I did almost like a little residency at MPX when I first moved to DFW after I came off the road with ROH. And I was literally interviewed like everyone on the MPX roster. And so now the fact that I'm not only talent for the company, but leading one of the top heel factions there and main eventing, 3 out of the 10 times I've been there is pretty crazy full circle story. I literally made the transition from one side of the barricade to the other.
Yeah.
But I did it the right way. I didn't jump the barricade like these idiots. I went and got trained and I earned my way across the barricade.
So you've done so much, whether it be being a DJ. We've talked about all kinds of stuff here.
I've lived like 8 lives, dude. I'm an ordained minister. I've married people in a comic book store.
Wow.
Like one day when my career is over, I've got COPD. I haven't really gone public about it, but I've got about a 10-year career left in me probably. And once that decade in wrestling is over and I write a story, it's going to be like the 9 lives of Tony Snow. Because I've lived pretty much like 9 lives, dude. I've had a very full existence, man. And I'm only 42. I've still got plenty of it left.
For sure. Do you have a favorite story that's happened to you since you've been doing all this?
Since I've been doing what?
Since you've been in wrestling.
Since I've been in wrestling, man, I've got so many. Like, there's been surreal moments. Here's my favorite story. And there's only so much I can tell because you're a PG podcast. So I'll do my best. If you have to edit any of it, I understand. Okay.
That's fine.
So last year at WrestleCon, WrestleMania was in Dallas. And I was booked a company I did production for. The main event on one of their days of their WrestleMania week show was going to be Rob Van Dam and Booker T against another tag team. And at the last minute, that show canceled. And so I was all bummed because I've partaken with the Sandman and Sabu, and I wanted to partake with Rob Van Dam because he's like the Bob Marley of pro wrestling.
Right.
The guy was on the cover of High Times. He was arrested for possession and stripped of the title. He's kind of a martyr for the cause type thing, right. He's that dude, like he's the big Lebowski as a wrestler.
Yep.
And so I'm all bummed, but Teddy's like, I'm in town, playa. Come work WrestleCon with me. So I'm like, okay. And I'm really not thinking what working WrestleCon with Teddy entails, right?
Right.
Well, I'm at the table with him for his signings, and he's in the Legends room. So I'm in the room with Bret Hart, Lex Luger, Arn Anderson, JBL, Teddy Long, Boogeyman, IRS, Money, both members of them, Brooke Hogan for some reason. Like all these people are all in this room and they're all coming by Teddy's table paying respects and he's introducing me to all of them.
Yeah.
So I'm meeting all of these legends. Like I'm shaking Bret Hart's hand. Like I wouldn't be doing this if I was working that indie show.
Right.
And so I take a break. I decide I'm going to go walk around the rest of the convention and see who else is there because I'd been in that room all day. And I see Rob Van Dam and I have some party favors on me. So I go and I hand them to him and I said, I was supposed to be on a show with you. These come with Teddy and my compliments. And he's like, oh man, you're a lifesaver. Well, I go back to the booth with Teddy, signing ends. I'd get him back up to his hotel room because he's staying at the same hotel the convention's at. I get him all settled, make sure he's straight because he's like a big bro to me, even though we were feuding in wrestling. In real life, he's my trainer.
Right.
And I make sure he's good. And then I go back downstairs and I'm like, you know what? Let me make one more lap through and see if I meet anyone famous that I wanted to, or if I find anyone I know or anything, run into anyone from earlier. Maybe I can have a drink with X-Pac or something. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
And the first people I see are Rob Van Dam and Katie Forbes, his girl.
Oh, okay.
They're like, yo, Teddy Long's dude, do you have a lighter? And I'm like, yeah, in my car. And they're like, well, we have to go to the House of Blues. Can you take us there? And I'm like, of course I can. And they're like, well, can we partake in your car? And I'm like, of course we can. So I literally got to drive Rob Van Dam around Dallas in my, at the time, Nissan Altima, while me and him are partaking while Katie's getting changed in the back seat.
Oh.
And what are we talking about? We're talking about the old ECW video games and how horrible they were and how they were like the Raw games, but worse,
Yeah.
And then we get to the venue and he's like, dude, we've got more of these. Let's make another turn. So I'm like, okay. So we drive around for some more. And so then we start talking about memorabilia. And he's like, I have the biggest collection of RVD memorabilia ever, man. Like sometimes, I get a little too tipsy and end up autographing stuff to myself. Like sometimes I open stuff up and play with it and then forget I opened it and wonder why it was open, and then I'm like, man, that's so cool. And so, yeah, I had this. And then a week later, I get an email from his assistant asking for my address. I email it to him. And a week after that, I get a Rob Van Dam Elite action figure in the mail. And it says, to Tony Snow, thanks for the lift. And lift is in quotation marks. Rob Van Dam, WWE Hall of Fame 21.
That's so cool.
So, yeah, I've got an irreplaceable piece of memorabilia. And then when I went to pick up Teddy for Extrava Slams at the Tulsa airport, I ran into RVD because he was there for a Comic-Con. They were on the same plane.
That's cool.
Like, he comes out there and he's like, dude, what are you doing here, bro? I was like, dude, I wish I'd known you were here. I would have been prepared, if you know what I mean. But yeah, so that, and then just all my interactions I've had with Teddy, people respect him so much, and rightly so.
Right.
But like being around Teddy and JBL together is hilarious because they're always ribbing each other, and being around Teddy and anyone really, they're ribbing each other.
Yeah. I actually met JBL.
Yeah, dude, he's such a cool guy, man.
I don't think he knew how to take me.
I saw him snap on a staff member though.
Did you?
Because there was a WrestleCon staff member that was there working on the clock.
Uh-huh.
And JBL comes by Teddy's table, and me and Teddy and JBL are talking. And this staff member turns around and he gets a selfie of us all. And JBL's like, "Are you kidding me, bro? You're on the clock. Plus, that's $40." Like, dude, guy's a multi-billionaire, and he wanted his $40 for a picture.
Where's my $40? Well, when I met him, it was at the Comic-Con this year in Northwest Arkansas. And I was wearing my podcast t-shirt and it says if you give a dad a podcast on it and everything. And I walk up to his table, and he just kind of stares at me for a minute, and then he reads, if you give a dad a podcast. It's like, what does that even mean? He was so I kind of explained it to him, and he's like, oh, okay. And that was like all he said about it. So it was kind of funny. I think I threw him off a little bit, but besides that,
he's got his own podcast, which is pretty entertaining.
Yes, I've listened to that. It's he's got some pretty good stuff on there.
He does one with him and Gerald Briscoe too. They've had Teddy on a few times.
Yeah,
it's really good too.
That one's a lot of fun.
Check out Teddy Long's podcast. By the way, they just dropped the one today where he tells a Macho Man Randy Savage cocaine story.
Oh wow, that'll be really interesting to hear.
Yep.
So now you're doing the managing wrestlers and things like that. What would you say is the hardest part about doing that?
Two different things for me. Number one, because of my autism, I'm really bad at multitasking.
Mm-hmm.
And so remembering everything that's supposed to happen in the match while getting my heat from the crowd, while doing this, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
When you're a manager, you got to do 3 or 4 things at once, man.
Yep.
And so that's a challenge, but I get it down by the grace of God. And then the other thing, the boundary that the happy medium I try to find is where I'm involved in the match and or interacting with the fans enough to get my moments and be memorable and contribute to it, but not overpower it.
Right.
Like, I've actually gotten applause for yelling at fans for taking attention from the match. I don't want to do it myself.
Yeah.
Like one guy at WFC last month wouldn't shut up every match. And so finally during our match, he was doing that shit. And I was like, dude, would you please stop? I know you have 2 women next to you. You're trying to be funny and get attention and look cute in front of them, but you look like an idiot. And these guys are risking their lives to entertain you for your $20. So out of respect, can you please stop?
Yeah.
And the crowd actually cheered me. So learning to walk that fine line to where there's enough attention on me to where there's a chance I can get signed, I can go somewhere, but I don't want to take shine away from my guy either. It's not my match. Like, something bothered me recently, and I know it wasn't done on purpose, but one of the companies I work for, and I'm not at liberty to say who it is, one of their broadcasts during the entrance, the camera shots were on me the whole time. Like, my guys on the turnbuckles and the camera's following me, and I'm talking smack and everything, but I'm only talking smack because the camera's following me.
Right.
You'd think that I was about to take my coat off and start wrestling this dude.
Yeah.
It was like it was my entrance,
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't want heat for that, and I don't want, I want to do my job to the best of my ability, but I don't want to disrespect my client by taking away from what he's doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's such a fine line to walk, because I gotta be discerning with which fan I give my attention to, because they're all yelling at me. I've got so much heat, everyone's screaming at me. They're calling me Barney, they're calling me Grimace. One dude called me Grimace, and I'm like, yeah, just like your wife does when you kiss her. And he's like, joke's on you, I don't have a wife. And I was like, of course you don't, because you're ugly as sin. But I didn't want to keep going because the crowd's laughing at me now, and my guy's doing a spot in the ring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's a fine line. Like, I want to get signed? Sure, but I'm not going to do it by getting all the attention on me.
Right.
I'm going to do it by making champions around me and keeping championships. That's how I'm going to get attention.
Yeah.
And right now at WFC, I'm the man. If I had a 5th member, we'd have all 5 titles. No disrespect, Mr. Royal. Maybe it'll be him. Maybe it won't. But if I had someone else, we'd have all the titles, dude. That's just how it is.
Yeah. Man, look at
my faction. I have the only thing that was given to me was the heavyweight champion. Okay. I took a tag team of 25-year veterans who were in the mid-card doing nothing as mid-card tweeners, and made them tag team champions that they took from the longest reigning champions after the Johnnies.
Right.
Like they took those titles from guys half their age, and then the Prime champion, Dashing Dustin Tibbs. He's the youngest Prime champion in the history of the company. He's been wrestling a year, and he's the TV champion. The Prime title's like the TV title there.
That's impressive.
Like we have, yeah, dude. Like Snowman Enterprises is all about excellence, and at MPX, we're main eventing. The only place I'm still working on it is at Texoma. I only have one dude there. I'm trying to get a tag team right now, so fingers crossed.
So you brought up everybody talking about the suit and stuff that you wear. It's that 3-piece purple suit that you wear. And I got to say, man, I actually like it. And I wish I could pull that off, man.
I have like 7 or 8 suits. I have a pink one, and they call me, when I wear the pink one, they call it pink, and I tell the stupid sweat hogs that it's salmon. If they were smart, they'd know the difference.
Yeah.
When I wear the light purple one, they call me Grimace. When I wear the dark purple one, they call me Barney.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I just feuded with the guy who was in the Barney suit, like for real at Texoma.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Josh Martin. He was the guy in the Barney suit, and he came into the celebrity appearance, and we had a little feud. It was funny. Here's the one I got that I was shocked by, and I got this at WFC by a girl that looked like she was 12 years old. When I wore the all red suit, she said I looked like a bloody tan.
Oh, no.
So that was, yeah. When I wear the green suit, they say I look like Santa Claus or an elf, Buddy the Elf.
Yeah.
Like whatever suit I wear, people make fun of, and I just tell them they're mad because number one, they're all Tom Ford. They all cost at least $5,000, and that's more than each of their cars are worth.
There you go.
So, they can be mad all they want that I look better than they're ever gonna look.
Yeah.
Ever.
No, man, you pull the suit off. Definitely.
I can pull off anything, bro. Give me a 3-piece Glad trash bag, and I'll wear that shit, and I'll rock it.
I believe it, man.
Looking as only I can look, and I'm having a hard time holding these alligators down. Woo!
So we're actually coming up on a close on this and everything. So I just have a few more questions before I get you off of here. So anybody who maybe is in a similar situation as you, do you have any advice for them, or some advice that you would like to give them that maybe you wish you would have got when you first started in the business?
Do I have advice for someone who wants to be a manager?
Somebody that wants to be a manager, somebody that wants to be a DJ, any of this?
Well, if you want to be a DJ, get trained. If you want to be a manager, get trained. Training is important.
Yes.
One thing that I see a lot and that I cannot stand is people who think that they're funny trying to be comedians, or people that think that they can fight trying to be wrestlers, or people that think that they can do this trying to be. Go to training, learn how to actually do this. Mm-hmm. That ring hurts. Everything about it hurts. Like the ropes, they're not bungee cords, they're elevator cables. It hurts to throw yourself against them. The mat is wooden planks across steel. It hurts. I avoid the ring as much as I can. I hurt my knee on it climbing to the second rope celebrating the other day. I was like that stupid football player that blew out his knee celebrating when I was celebrating the Prime title because my client was knocked out on thrash still. I blew out my knee on the freaking rope. Like, dude. Like, don't just go into this flippantly. Respect the business by getting trained.
Yeah.
If you want to DJ, respect the business by getting trained. Anyone can DJ nowadays. Anyone can go and buy a laptop and download virtual DJ. That doesn't mean that you're a good DJ. Song selection is key. Reading the audience is key. Technology, even in DJing, is key. Like, a lot of the stuff that I learned reading the crowd as a DJ helps me read the crowd in pro wrestling.
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff is similar. You know what I mean? So that's the big thing. Don't think just because your buddies think you do it, or the yes men that surround you think you do it, or your girlfriend says that you could do it, that you can just go do it. Like, go get trained. Do it the right way, or you're going to get hurt yourself or hurt somebody else.
Is there anything coming up that maybe you want to talk about?
Yeah, man. Coming up September the 9th, we have the Fight for M at WFC. I've got a few matches on the card. My Prime champion, dashing, delicious, daring Dustin Tibbs. He's going to be taking on the mute fuse, Johnny Dynamite, the guy that never, ever, ever speaks. I think he can talk. I don't know. But anyway.
He can. I've had him on the show.
He won this Battle Royal last month. And so he gets a shot at my prime championship that Dustin Tibbs is defending. Um, and then let's see what else. Riker chose Cappuccino Jones to face Dutch Hagen.
Mm-hmm.
And Lil Stevie. Can I call him Lil Stevie? I'm gonna call him Lil Stevie. He wanted me to choose somebody to face Riker, and it was a waste of my time. So I didn't even send in a promo. If I don't even know that I'll even tell Dutch to show up. He's gonna show up. He's gonna face Cappuccino Jones. So
Right.
Riker shows him, but I didn't pick anyone for Riker because it's not worth my time. I'm worried about Cappuccino Jones getting him out of my way because I got to pass with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's always screwed over my plans. He's like those meddling kids in Scooby Doo. So I want to get Cappuccino Jones out of my way, and then I want to get Riker out of the way and in the rearview mirror. And then a month or two after that, my Luxembourg Beast will be the winningest, longest reigning WFC champion of all time. And that's my main concern right now, along with keeping the other 3 titles. And then Duke Cornell is going to be wrestling my half of my tag team champions, Duke Swellington. So you're gonna have some Duke on Duke violence.
There you go,
as
man.
you see the Copperhead Duke Cornell against Duke Swellington, the banana of your fruit salad of life, the master of the Kermit arms, the king of the Kung Fu grip, the master of the heavy leg, Duke Swellington himself. He'll be defending. No, he won't be defending nothing, Sweat Hogs. It's 1-on-1. Those tag titles aren't going anywhere. If I had it my way, all of my guys would defend their titles once a year at Extravaslams. That's it. But you know what? On the 9th of September, you get a prime title shot. But yeah, you're going to have to wait for a tag title shot. And that heavyweight championship's not going anywhere. But I got 3 matches that day, so come see me in all my glory. And I'll tell you, like I tell everyone, man, if you're gonna support me, if you're all about winning championships and securing them by all means necessary, I will be your hero. I will, if you're gonna wear one of my t-shirts, I will make sure you can wear it proudly because my guys will always be draped in gold. But if you're gonna hate me or have the nerve to boo me or curse at me or say something about me or throw a bottle at me like has happened before, and if you're going to decide to hate me, I'm going to go out of my way to make sure I'm the most hated guy in your world. You're going to be the lady getting 30 corn tortillas to your face. Like, if you're going to hate me, I'm going to make sure you hate me. But it's up to you, man. It's your call. You know what I mean? But you know what? If you're going to hate me, then I'm going to hate you so much that whoever comes out of that curtain to shut me up gets a hero's welcome. And you know why? Because I'm damn good at what I do. Ask D'Lo Brown. It's a direct quote. I'm one hell of a manager. You all I better recognize.
Man, I'm loving this. This is great. I'm over here smiling from ear to ear. So where can people follow you at? If they want to go on there and they want to maybe follow you online to find out where you're going to be at next, or if they want to talk crap to you online, where can they do that?
You can follow me. Man, I'm on all social media. I've been dealing with some issues. I fired my previous manager. Then I had someone else managing my socials, and that didn't work out. So I need to get caught back up on them. But it's Real Tony Snow, at Real Tony Snow on X, which is the old name for Twitter. Facebook, just look up Tony Snow. You'll see me. I believe the actual web address is www.facebook.com/DJ Tony Snow. Printed out DEEJAY, DJ Tony Snow. But hey, if you search for me, I'm sure you'll find me. But it's pretty much, Real Tony Snow on everything, man. And the 3rd Friday of every month, I'm usually at Texoma. The 1st Saturday of every month, I'm usually at WFC. And I will be back at MPX on September the 16th, but I'm off from MPX until then. But yeah, my most active thing is probably my Facebook or my Instagram. So yeah, Real Tony Snow on everything. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, it's been great talking to you tonight, and I'm definitely going to have to get you back on here at some point.
Man, anytime, dude. If I dominated the conversation, my apologies.
I loved it. It was great.
Someone as excellent as I am loves talking about myself. But I'd be more than happy to come back on anytime you want me. Thank you so much.
All right. You have a good night.
You too, man. Thank you.
What's up, everybody? This is the Showcase, Alex Royal, brand new host of When This Microphone Hits My Mouth. You get the idea. We're going to be bringing you guys new episodes every single week, keeping the same popular style format that we had on What Can You Offer, my other podcast with John Cross. Be sure to check that one out, because every once in a while you might see another special episode, and you never know, John might cameo on this one every once in a while. But we're going to bring you unique perspectives on all things Oklahoma wrestling, pop culture, entertainment, podcast, and really, honestly, just anything that pops up. We're just going to have a free-for-all, have conversations, have guests, and have a grand old time. So be sure to check us out every single week. The goal is to have a new episode drop every single Friday, so you, yourself, your friends, and everybody else listening to this right here can check us out. Be sure to check back.
Hey listeners, I'm glad you're enjoying what you're listening to. I'm Billy from Zero to Hero Podcast. I'll always be joined by Jim, and me and him are the Folk and Skull Podcasting. Definitely, if you love what you're listening to, then come swing on by Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that you find your podcast, we'll be there too.
Riddle me this. What do you get when you get 3 Power Ranger fans who also write Power Ranger fan fictions and upload them on separate podcasts and YouTube channels, and you happen to put the 3 of them together and they form a unique Power Ranger storyline? Here's your answer. You get the 3 Ranger Bros, who is myself, Ty Tiger, the Red Corner Ranger, Mark, and the Cosplay Dude 637. We are the 3 Ranger Bros, and we came up with the idea called Power Rangers Global, a storyline where 4 different Rangers from different universes team up to save Universe 2118, a universe ruled by the gods. Now, if you want to hear Power Rangers Global, you can find it on Tiger Tales, the YouTube channel, and Nerds Through Comics, the podcast, and you can find that podcast anywhere that podcast can be listened to. So one more time, that's Power Rangers Global on Tiger Tales, the YouTube channel, and Nerds Through Comics, the podcast.
All right, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed that episode with Tony Snow. He was a great guest, and he had a ton of great stories to tell on this episode. And I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And I can't wait to get him on again so we can talk some more. So I want to give a shout out to my podcast networks that I'm a part of, the OIW Podcast Network, the Avenue Podcast Network, and the Zero to Hero Podcast Network. If you are looking for any type of different podcast that you would like to listen to, go and check these guys out. They've got everything that you could want, whether that be wrestling podcasts or it be fan fiction, or if you want to hear stuff where they talk about toys or they talk about Power Rangers or travel episodes or whatever you're looking for, they have on one of these networks. So go and check all of them out. I will have a link to all of them in my show notes. So I also have merch out. I have shirts and stickers and mugs and all kinds of other stuff. So if you want any of that stuff, make sure that you follow me on my social media pages. That way you can order this stuff, or you can order it from my wife, who makes all of it for me, and she is Cups and Teas by Stasha. She makes all kinds of great stuff. She made shirts for me for Diamond State Wrestling. She's also made shirts for the Vatos Kinda Loco, the former tag team champions of Diamond State Wrestling. As I'm recording this, it is 10 o'clock at night on Sunday, so I just got back from doing the show there, interviewing people, and doing the rare cut. So I am still very tired from that, and it was a great show. I had a lot of fun doing it, and maybe I'll be able to talk more about it in this next episode that I record. But yeah, if you want any merch, go and get it from Cups and Teas by Stasha. She has some great prices and some great things. So as you're listening to this, make sure that you let me know what you think of it. And when you do leave a review, people are more likely to follow or find this. And the more the merrier. Also, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to this. Hit the notification bell. That way you make sure that you get notified every time there's a new episode of iGetApp. So you've heard me talk about social media, things like that. If you can follow me on any of those, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Snapchat, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Twitter. I'm all over the place. So just go and look up If You Give a Dad a Podcast, and you can find me at any one of those. You can also send me an email at giveadadapodcast@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you guys. Make sure that you go out there and you follow me. That way you can stay up to date with all the new episodes that will be coming out and all the cool things that I'm going to be doing over the next few months. I've got some really great stuff coming up, and I just want to make sure that you guys have the ability to see everything that's going on. I also want to give a shout out to D-Cure for making my ending theme song for me. It's an amazing song, and if you like what you hear, make sure that you go out there and follow him. I also want to say thank you to the original Geek Comics for giving me a spot in their Paladin comic book to advertise for this podcast. And I really appreciate those guys. Make sure you go out there, follow them. They are making some great new stories, and I can't wait to get my stuff in the mail from them. So it's time for everybody's favorite part of the episode, I believe, and that is the Dad Joke of the Week. How do billboards talk? They use sign language. All right. I love you guys. I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. Bye.
Room rounded, but I got a podcast on. He calls us beautiful people, then tells us who we have on. The best part of my day, though we're blocked out in my pods. Tell my friends all about it so that they follow along. And the host is kinda nerdy, but guess what I am as well. I don't feel so alone, and I began walking out of my shell. Heard a story, I need a connection I haven't felt. I'll be looking for the next one, till then farewell. It's the podcast for me. Have it on, better go see. Listen closely, download and tune in remotely. It's the podcast for me. Have it on, better go see. And listen closely, download and tune in remotely.
This podcast is part of the OIW Podcasting Network.